In this video, we're going to be reviewing Linus Tech Tips or LTT's multi-bit precision screwdriver set, as well as the screwdriver itself. There's a few things that we need to talk about here. Number one, this video is not sponsored. Linus Media Group didn't send me any money. The only thing that they did send me was the screwdriver itself, as well as the precision bit set and case. So that had to be supplied to me for me to just review in general. There's a few things that I want to talk about. It is a really neat multi-bit precision screwdriver. It's expensive, and I think most everyone knows that it's expensive. So there's a few parts that I want to talk about there on its cost, and we'll get to the end of how we can try to justify it. Starting in first with the unboxing, there are a few instances where there is some key attention to detail, and this is really what I want to kind of address overall as an overarching theme here with regard to both the bit set as well as a screwdriver, is that there is an intent across the board for everything. And you can clearly see that they sat down people, put down a bunch of bit sets and screwdrivers with different devices and say, okay, start working on this and see where your pain points are and just start writing them down. And you can almost see through the matrix here of like all the different considerations that they've taken here. So with the magnetic case that they have here, there's magnets that are holding it closed. So there's no clip or anything that you need to fasten this together or using some type of sliding mechanism to hold it shut. Linus Tech Tips has a lot of different products that rely on a lot of different magnets all over, including even in this hinge. So this hinge allows it so that there's a few really cool parts here. Number one is perhaps when they were moving around this case, the flap itself was actually getting in the way of some stuff. So being able to take that out and remove it was definitely a consideration. And they don't have any other type of fastening mechanism on there. So there's no screws or anything. It's all literally just held together by magnets itself, which is a nice touch. But along those same lines is they included inside of here. Now there's a few different ways that you can do this. You can actually layer it like this. So now there is magnets on the bottom of this as well as on here. So this is actually held together with magnets, so you could stack it up if you don't want to use the features that are on the other side of this case at all to just kind of declutter your workspace. But also on this side of the case itself is an arrangement of buckets to actually put screws down on whatever device you're working with to hold the screws in that place in a very specific order. So if you're opening up a laptop, if you're opening up a handheld, if you're opening up anything, typically more to the point, more for laptops have very, very specific screws when they are going in, depending on the orientation of the laptop itself. Typically on the back, they're going to have longer screws, and the front, they're going to have smaller screws. So needing a place to put those in a space where it's not going to get lost or moved, or you're not going to lose its place. It does have a benefit for those trays to exist to bifurcate where those screws go, as well as magnets to make sure that they don't actually go anywhere. Additionally, there is a center portion on this case as well, where you can actually put the bits themselves. So if you are swapping out different bits, if you need to go to different security bits, so you're going to go to Phillips to open it up, but then you need to use a hex bit for any type of security part that they're trying to get to, you can actually just keep all of your working bits in here instead of going back into the bit set itself and then hunting it down later. Those are the types of considerations that become very apparent when just using it, and I appreciate those things. So from that point alone, this as just the bit set alone is kind of worth it, even if you didn't get the precision screwdriver. I actually like this more than I like the precision screwdriver, but it kind of goes hand in hand. Now, there's a lot of different features on here that make it worthwhile. There is one thing that, for me, I think is a kind of lacking, and I would like it to be in there. It doesn't need to be a bit set, but there is another tool, and we'll get to that in just a second. But the other thing that I wanted to address is the bits themselves that we have here. Now, one of the nice things about this particular bit set, as opposed to my other bit sets, is that typically, whenever I take a look at these types of bits, that the shaft is very, very tiny in terms of depth. And that has been a problem a lot of times, to the point that I've had to use single-use screwdrivers, or a screwdriver that has a specific bit at the end of it that had just a very long shaft. So there was no replaceable bits on there. having a very long shaft that is the same diameter of the bit itself goes a long way for a lot of different devices that may have a very deep well before you can actually get to the top of the screwdriver, the screw itself. So that again is another bit of intent that they're taking a look at there that is very critical for a lot of different devices, not just this is more so for laptops, handhelds, and other devices that are for portable devices. I'm not really thinking that you're going to see this in so much as desktop builds, but for mobile devices, you're really going to be having these problems far more often than not. So one thing that I find a bit odd with all the care and attention that they've so far done with just the bit set case itself, not even the screwdriver. One thing that I find odd is that if you were going to be opening up laptops, anything, monitors, all of these types of things have plastic clips that kind of hold it together inside. So even when you undo the screws, largely the housing is still intact and not really coming apart quite often. There are these extremely annoying plastic clips that get in the way. So it's weird to me how they could have almost done a experiment to see what would aggravate them and then not have some type of spudger tool that's included in this set to facilitate opening up a device of some sort. Typically, these are like plastic spudger tools. The problem with plastic spudger tools is they wear out because the plastic is going to be less hard of a material than the material that you're going to be trying to pry open. And you want it to be less hard so that the spudger tool actually gets damaged rather than the device that you're working on. They do make other types of shims and spudger tools. They have metal spudger tools that are very, very thin and can kind of almost uh, like bend in a certain way. So I would have liked if they included some type of metal, very thin spudger tool that has properties that won't damage a lot of plastics. That's a hard ask. Like that's not an easy thing to come across. But I feel like that is the one crucial missing ingredient with this entire security bit set for because from my point of view, I'm opening devices on this. And when we open it up, the only available bit set that I have, the only available bit that is here that allows any type of purchase into the device itself to start unclipping those plastic clips on the inside is a flathead. And a flathead made of steel is going to pry into that plastic and start marring the plastic. Now, you can see after I use that bit set on this particular handheld that I did actually scratch into the SD housing because that's the only place that I could actually get purchase into it to start prying it open before the clips can start coming out for me to just easily undo the rest of the clips. So that is probably the only part here that I would say is a clear miss when everything else seems to be really well thought out. With regard to the precision screwdriver itself, this by itself is $30, and that's pretty outrageous. When we include it with the bit set as well, when they bundle it together, it's $50 at a discount right now on their store. That's less outrageous, but still overall expensive. So what do you get from the precision screwdriver? This part comes out, there's a fidget spinner on the top, which is nice, not just from a fidget spinner side, because like, I don't know, I guess you could care about that, but more to the point, it's about even distribution when moving it around and not, the friction is not there. I've had other really cheap screwdrivers that had like a flimsy top that was free floating, and it kind of just hurt pressing on it with my index finger when moving around. So it's really about just even distribution of force that you get to put on there while being able to turn it. And there is value to that. Is it the extra value that's there? I don't really think so. For this caddy, while that's neat, I'm really coming up empty on where this is going to be beneficial. If you were in such a rush or you wanted to pack so light that you did not want to put this screwdriver in its proper place because you wanted to just carry this with you and just 3 bits that you knew that you would need, I don't think I would ever do that. There's no experience that I can think of that I would do that. I would just take this because this is not large at all. And I'd be concerned with losing this very expensive precision screwdriver. Now, with regard to materials and what it's made of, I'm not enough of an authority figure to actually talk to that in any way that is meaningful, it feels fine. It works fine, and it does the job. There is a lot of care and intent that the Linus Media Group, the whole team went through when looking at this. It's clear and it's evident. There is not just it's not just slopped together and they're charging $50 to make a profit out of this thing. That is clear. That is evident. There is intent with what they've done, which means that they care about what they have produced here. And as far as they're concerned, and what they're saying is all of the improvements that they're doing here is not seen on other types of bit sets with Screwdriver, so that's why that they're charging what they're charging. It's still very expensive no matter which way you slice it. I just wish that it had a Spudger tool or anything to consider opening up a device further that does not require screws. It really requires plastic hooks that are holding housing together. And that is one thing that I think is clearly missing for this type of device, because this is a security bit set. You're going to be opening up game consoles with this, and all of those types of things have clips that you need to kind of pry into. So this comes in handy when you open up laptops, monitors, gaming handhelds, and that type of stuff. I don't think you're going to be using this type of screwdriver for larger projects. You use larger screwdrivers. So ultimately, the question is, how can we possibly justify the cost of this bit set with the screwdriver? Outright, the value for it isn't there. I could not possibly recommend it for the cost of what you get out of this. So straight out from there, if that's the only thing you care about, it's a no for me. Now, if you wanted to kind of get everything that this does in other products, yeah, you can build it. Perhaps you won't be able to get a bit set that is detachable with magnetic clips that have magnets on the back that can be arranged for a lot of different purposes, with elongated shafts that are also magnetic in the bit itself. There's a lot of care that went into this. There's a lot of intent that went into this. So it's not just slopped together. They're not just trying to extract profit from you. They're obviously thinking of a lot of things here that are trying to make it the best that they possibly could. And that's evident. The problem is that you can also replicate this at a less cost in a variety of different fashions. So ultimately what it comes down to is, do you like Linus Tech Tips? Do you like the Linus Media Group? And do you want to support them? And that's really where it comes down to. That extra cost is, hey, I like what you guys do. I have been entertained by you lots of times. I want to support this group. I want to see you guys succeed, and I want you guys to continue doing what you're doing. And that's really why you're going to be paying $50 for this. It's not so much the value of it. It is really good, and there's a lot of care and attention put into it. I can't possibly recommend it for the price by itself, but if you do like Linus Tech Tips and Linus Media Group, yeah, sure, why not? I want to thank my YouTube channel members as well as my Patreon members. Your support really does mean the world to me, guys. I hope this video was informative. As always, thank you for your time, and thanks for watching.